Here, we bring the universe's greatest journeys to life, immersive, first-person narratives that place you at the heart of cosmic exploration and discovery. Each episode invites you to travel alongside visionaries and pioneers, from the architects of orbit to the astronauts who touched the moon, from Mission Control's nerve center to the engineers charting courses to distant worlds. You'll witness their triumphs and trials as if you were in their helmets and at their consoles. Our goal is simple: to spark your curiosity, carry you beyond the stars, and guide you gently through the wonders of space. If you enjoy these voyages through time and space, please like and subscribe. Your support helps our channel reach new horizons and create even more stellar stories for you. We'd love to hear your ideas. Leave a comment telling us which missions, milestones, or explorers you'd like us to feature next. Your suggestions fuel our next launch. Thank you for joining us on this cosmic odyssey. Now prepare for liftoff and let Spacetime History transport you among the stars. Welcome to a tranquil journey into history, told through the eyes of those who lived it. Tonight you're about to drift gently through space and time, experiencing one of humanity's greatest adventures, the week Neil Armstrong became the first human being to walk on the moon. In this 7-part story, you will quietly accompany Neil Armstrong through his personal thoughts, reflections, and quiet moments of contemplation. You'll join him as he prepares emotionally and physically for an unprecedented voyage, experiences the profound stillness of space, and sets foot upon a world no human had ever visited. Feel the gentle pull of history as you immerse yourself in the introspective solitude Armstrong experienced aboard Apollo 11, a quiet witness to the marvels of human ingenuity and the humbling vastness of the cosmos. Each night will unfold slowly, thoughtfully, allowing you to absorb the enormity of this moment through calm and serene storytelling, perfect for guiding you peacefully into restful sleep. And as you journey with Neil Armstrong, consider exploring our other channels, where captivating stories from the worlds of war, space exploration, and nature await, designed to transport you effortlessly away from the stresses of the day. Remember, your likes, subscribes, and thoughtful comments greatly support our channel. Perhaps tonight you might share your reflections. What does the idea of exploring space mean to you? Now settle comfortably, close your eyes, and let your mind drift gently towards the moon. Day 1, July 14th, 1969. The countdown to history has begun. The day started early, with gentle morning sunlight filtering softly through the bedroom curtains. My mind drifted in and out of sleep, dreams mingling with thoughts of the incredible journey ahead. For months, years even, this moment had existed only as a distant point in the future. Now, it was here. I lay still for a few extra minutes, absorbing the peaceful quiet of my bedroom, aware that soon peace and quiet would take on new meanings entirely. Memories surfaced of childhood nights spent gazing at the stars, dreaming of exploration, and wondering about the universe's countless mysteries. Today felt surreal, a childhood dream brought vividly to life. Breakfast was quiet, almost routine, yet today every moment felt different, more vivid, more significant. Each spoonful of cereal, every sip of coffee, was a silent marker of normalcy against the backdrop of impending adventure. I found comfort in these simple acts, grounding me amidst swirling thoughts. As I ate, I glanced around the room, taking in familiar details: the pictures on the wall, the gentle ticking of the clock, the familiar hum of the refrigerator. These ordinary details suddenly held profound significance, reminders of the everyday life I was temporarily leaving behind. Buzz and Michael joined me soon after. We exchanged quiet good mornings, each of us silently recognizing the immense magnitude of the day ahead. Our conversations were short, comfortably sparse, words chosen carefully to maintain a sense of calm. Our friendship had grown immensely over the months of intense training. Shared experiences had woven a quiet understanding between us, deeper than words could fully convey. Our briefings today were meticulous, filled with detailed checks and rechecks of systems and procedures we had rehearsed countless times. The familiar rooms at the Johnson Space Center held a new intensity, but we spoke little about the emotions simmering beneath our focused exteriors. We exchanged knowing glances. Reassurance passed silently between us. Every procedure reviewed felt like rehearsing an intricate dance, every step critical, carefully memorized, deeply internalized. During these detailed reviews, each checklist item prompted vivid memories of earlier preparations. I remembered the hundreds of hours spent in simulators, simulating every conceivable scenario. Each session taught us resilience, cooperation, and trust. With every step we rehearsed, we forged a bond, knowing our lives depended upon one another. Today, that bond felt especially strong. I recalled late nights and early mornings spent perfecting maneuvers, troubleshooting potential emergencies, always refining, always improving. The process had been exhaustive, but rewarding, embedding confidence deeply within us. Lunch offered a brief respite, a quiet moment shared with Buzz and Michael. We talked casually about trivial matters, deliberately steering clear of the monumental events looming ahead. It was our way of preserving a slice of normality, grounding ourselves in simple humanity. Laughter, though subdued, felt important, essential even, as a balm against the tension we all silently felt. We reminisced briefly about lighter moments during training, small humorous incidents, moments of camaraderie that brought smiles to our faces. After lunch, the technicians and engineers called us back to continue our extensive preparations. This stage was critical, going over intricate details of the command module and lunar module operations. Each check, each affirmation from the control room filled me with increasing confidence. Yet beneath that confidence lay a subtle undercurrent of anxiety, natural but carefully controlled. I reminded myself that countless dedicated people had poured their lives into this mission, and we owed it to them to succeed. Each system checked off the list was another reassurance, another step toward readiness. Throughout the afternoon, I found moments to quietly contemplate the broader implications of our journey. The weight of humanity's dreams felt tangible, pressing gently but persistently upon my shoulders. It wasn't merely about personal achievement, it was about fulfilling an ancient human yearning, a quest for knowledge, exploration, and understanding. This awareness gave me strength, transforming anxiety into purpose. I thought deeply about the historical context, generations before us who had dreamed of such a journey, the philosophers, scientists, and dreamers whose imaginations had sparked humanity's quest for exploration. Later, in the quiet spaces between briefings, I found solace in the familiar comfort of routine procedures. Checking suit fittings, reviewing emergency protocols, and discussing contingency plans felt reassuring. Routine had a comforting predictability, a quiet rhythm that steadied my thoughts. Each action was performed deliberately, with a quiet reverence for the significance of what lay ahead. I carefully examined my spacesuit, feeling the texture of the fabric, checking every seal and fastener, knowing it would soon protect me in the harsh void of space. In a brief pause before dinner, I stepped outside for fresh air. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting golden light across the landscape. Nature's simple beauty offered a poignant contrast to the complex machinery and human ambition driving our mission. The air felt crisp, refreshing, grounding me once more in the simple, profound joy of Earth's natural beauty. I listened quietly to the subtle sounds of nature, the whisper of leaves in the breeze, the distant calls of birds, the gentle rustle of grass. This brief respite was precious, a peaceful moment I consciously stored away. Dinner approached, and with it came a calm anticipation for the evening ahead, filled with introspection and quiet preparation. Dinner was an intimate, unhurried affair, a gentle gathering of minds sharing the table, each feeling the weight and wonder of this historic eve. As the first course was served, I noticed how the soft clinking of silverware and the low murmur of voices provided a comforting rhythm, grounding us in a sense of togetherness. The meal itself was simple, nourishing: tender roast chicken, steamed vegetables, and just enough dessert to offer a quiet sweetness to the evening. Yet every bite carried significance, a reminder of home and the simple pleasures awaiting our return. Buzz shared a light story from his childhood, a moment of levity that drew a few smiles around the table. In that warmth, I felt gratitude for the camaraderie we had built. This shared friendship would be an anchor when the vastness of space felt overwhelming. Michael, ever composed, spoke softly about the precision required for tomorrow's launch, words chosen to inspire calm confidence. His measured tone reminded me of the collective trust placed in our skills and preparation. After dessert, we moved to a quieter corner of the lounge, a small book-lined room filled with mementos of past missions. Here the conversation deepened, drifting from technical briefings to personal reflections. I spoke of my parents' unwavering belief in me, their letters of encouragement carried in my flight bag for reassurance. Buzz talked about his family's porch in Ohio, the place he would return to under starlit skies. Michael remembered peaceful evenings on his Connecticut farm, the scent of pine lingering in his memory. These reflections tethered us to Earth's gentle embrace. As the clock edged closer to bedtime, the final formal briefing commenced. In the control center, illuminated by soft instrument lights, we reviewed the critical sequences: launch, orbit insertion, and lunar module separation. Each step was laid out meticulously, a silent choreography danced between Earth and space. Though the briefing room buzzed with purposeful activity, an underlying calm pervaded the air. Years of training had honed our responses to instinctual precision. Minutes later, a small gathering of mission controllers and NASA leadership joined us for a brief moment of solidarity. Handshakes were exchanged, accompanied by heartfelt words of trust and encouragement. I glanced around, seeing faces etched with pride, determination, and hope. These were the people who had dedicated their lives to this dream. Their faith in us fueled my own resolve. Returning to my quarters, the world felt hushed, the corridors bathed in the soft glow of overhead lights. I paused outside my door, drawing in a quiet breath before stepping inside. The room was simple, yet thoughtfully arranged: a bed neatly made, a desk with my flight bag, and on the bedside table the small photograph of my family. I turned it gently in my hand, allowing memories of laughter and love to fill my mind. Settling at my desk, I opened my journal. My pen hovered as I gathered my thoughts before writing. Slowly, deliberately, I recorded the day's experiences, moments of tension sharpened by shared laughter, the profound stillness of contemplation, the reassuring structure of routine. Each entry captured a facet of the human spirit woven into this mission: hope, humility, courage, and wonder. I reflected on past missions, drawing lessons from those who had flown before us. I thought of Gus Grissom and Ed White, their bravery mapping the path we now followed. I honoured their sacrifices and foresaw how our journey would build upon theirs. The collective legacy of exploration resonated deeply, a tapestry connecting explorers across generations. As midnight approached, the spacecraft rose silently in my thoughts, its metal hull gleaming beneath the lunar surface, the promise of discovery awaiting each of us. My mind drifted between technical considerations, fuel margins, communication protocols, and the poetic enormity of stepping onto another world. The hum of life support systems echoed faintly in my memory, a cradle of technology and human ingenuity. Finally, I prepared my personal items for the journey. Each article was chosen with care. The photo of my wife and children, a small memento from home, a dog-eared notebook, pages ready for new reflections, a pocket watch, its rhythmic ticking a reminder of earthly time. These objects formed a bridge between worlds, symbols of humanity's love and curiosity. Climbing into bed, I felt a profound mixture of calm and anticipation. The thin mattress and crisp sheets felt unfamiliar, yet comforting, a final link to Earth's gentle embrace. I closed my eyes, allowing the day's sights and sounds to soften into memory. Sleep came slowly, wrapped in the soothing cadence of my own breath, carrying me toward dreams of stars and silence. Tonight, I rest within the sanctuary of Earth, preparing to cross boundaries not just of distance, but of imagination. Tomorrow, I will awaken to the promise of history. For now, I surrender to sleep, trusting tomorrow's light to guide me toward the moon. Day 2, July 15th, 1969, the last day on Earth. I awakened to the gentle hum of the ventilation system, the familiar, yet ever so slightly altered routine of a pre-launch morning, settling around me. Light filters through the small window of my quarters, revealing a sky tinged with soft pastel hues. Outside, the Kennedy Space Center is already in motion, technicians moving about purposefully, support vehicles rolling along the tarmac, the unmistakable silhouette of the Saturn V rocket standing sentinel, silent yet imposing. Today holds a unique gravity. It is our final day under this blue sky, surrounded by fields of grass rather than the infinite expanse of space. As I dress, each movement feels deliberate, measured. The sensation of fabric against skin, the gentle tug of a button, the precise alignment of my flight suit. These simple acts carry the weight of finality. I pause for a moment at the mirror, looking into my own eyes as if seeing both the man I am and the explorer I will soon become. Breakfast is shared in a quiet dining area with Buzz and Michael. Conversation flows with the ease of old friends, yet beneath our words, an unspoken acknowledgement. Tomorrow, everything changes. I savour the warmth of fresh fruit, the comforting aroma of brewed coffee, the presence of familiar faces. Each second is imbued with significance, an echo of the life I know, a memory to carry into the unknown. After breakfast, we gather for a final suit fitting. The white exterior of the pressure suit feels cool to the touch. Its multiple layers and joints, a marvel of engineering. As technicians make minor adjustments, tightening straps, sealing gloves, I reflect on the countless hours of testing and refinement that brought this suit from concept to reality. In its layers lies the promise of safety and survival amidst the unforgiving void beyond our atmosphere. Walking through the sterile corridors toward the vehicle assembly building, I take a deep breath, filling my lungs with conditioned air. The faint scent of metal, hydraulic fluid, and polished concrete surrounds me. Each footstep resonates quietly, the sound of history in motion. I think of the thousands of engineers, mechanics, and dreamers whose efforts culminate in this monumental endeavour. Their dedication fuels my own resolve. Mid-morning brings a moment of solitude. I step into a small meditation room, its walls lined with framed photographs of past missions. Here, I close my eyes and let my mind drift, focusing on breath and presence, images of liftoff, of the Earth receding, of the lunar landscape swirl gently in my thoughts. These reflections steady my spirit, reminding me that fear and wonder are intertwined, each energizing the other. Next, a final family message arrives via video link. Seeing my wife smile, hearing the voice of my children, even through a screen, fills me with warmth that transcends the distance. I speak softly, sharing words of love and hope, promising to return. Their faces, full of pride and concern, anchor me to what truly matters. In that brief exchange, time seems to compress and yet stand still. The afternoon unfolds with pre-launch briefings, flight procedures, emergency contingencies, communication protocols, all are reviewed one last time. The control room buzzes with focused energy. Rows of consoles aglow with data streams. Buzz, Michael, and I sit together, attentive and composed, voices calm and deliberate. Each affirmation of "go for launch" reverberates as a collective heartbeat, synchronizing our intent with that of every person watching over us. Soon after, the crew makes its way to the transport vehicle destined for Launch Complex 39A. The walk feels ceremonial, each step echoing the weight of history. Technicians wave silent farewells, family members stand at a respectful distance, tears glimmering in the sunlight. I glance back at the launch pad, its towering structure etched against the sky. Tomorrow, I will ride that pillar of flame into the stars. Inside the mobile quarantine facility, we prepare for the journey out to the pad. The fluorescent lights and metal walls feel confining, a stark contrast to the open fields we left behind moments ago. I breathe deeply, letting the confined space remind me of the vessel I soon inhabit. The sensation is oddly reassuring. It echoes the cramped confines of the command module, where every inch is optimized for function and purpose. As transport begins, the vehicle rumbles forward, the launch complex looming ever larger. Through the small windows, I see the massive rocket, its umbilicals like lifelines tethering it to Earth. The final seconds in this vehicle pass in contemplative silence. I close my eyes, drawing in the collective energy of our team, the hopes of our nation, and the enduring human drive to explore. In this quiet moment before dawn, I feel both profoundly small and infinitely connected. The journey back to the crew quarters is filled with final preparations, checks of instrumentation, power-up of auxiliary systems, last-minute calibrations. Technicians call out statuses in measured tones, their confidence instilling my own. Every switch flipped, every gauge monitored, reaffirms a simple truth. We are more than hardware. We are living emissaries of curiosity, forging a path into the unknown. As twilight descends, casting long shadows across the launch site, I find one last moment for reflection. I stand at the edge of the pad, gazing up at the Saturn V, my silhouette dwarfed by its immense presence. The cool breeze carries a whisper of possibility. Tonight, I will rest, carrying the dreams of countless souls into the silent embrace of space. Tomorrow, we will make history. In the quiet hush of my quarters, I prepare for bed. The room, small and sparsely furnished, feels like the threshold of anything and everything. My thoughts drift slowly between past and future, between the man who once gazed at the stars and the one who about to touch them. Sleep approaches gently, guided by the steady cadence of breath and the promise of dawn's flame. For tonight, Earth cradles me softly, holding me safe until the moment comes to depart. As the lights dimmed and the quiet of the night settled around me, I felt both anticipation and serenity entwine within. Closing the door behind me, I placed my helmet carefully on the small shelf by the bed, a silent promise of tomorrow's dawn. The room's soft lighting cast gentle shadows across the walls, transforming familiar objects into evocative reminders of home. I slipped beneath the blankets, the crisp sheets cool against my skin, and settled into the narrow mattress, every sense attuned to the magnitude of the next day. Sleep did not come instantly. Instead, my mind wove between memories of Earth's gentle embrace and visions of the lunar landscape awaiting our arrival. I remembered dusty fields of my childhood, nights wrapped in a blanket beneath star-strewn skies, feeling the vastness of space calling to me. Each thought felt woven with threads of wonder and responsibility, an acknowledgement that I carried not only my own hopes, but those of an entire people. Eventually, I drifted into a light sleep, my breathing matching the soft cadence of the ventilation system. In dreams, I walked along a shoreline under an unfamiliar sky, the lunar module's footprint pressed gently into pale dust. The horizon shimmered with Earth's distant glow, a silent orb suspended in black velvet. My heartbeat in the dream was both human and cosmic, bridging two worlds. Hours slipped by in this dreamy state, between consciousness and reverie. Then in the early pre-dawn hush, I awakened briefly to the soft chime of an internal clock, a personal reminder that time was moving steadily toward launch. The air felt cooler now, and I sensed a subtle tension in my muscles, a readiness coiled beneath calm. I closed my eyes again, letting the last minutes of rest seep into my bones, knowing they would sustain me when the day truly began. Moments before sunrise, I stirred and sat up. The room was bathed in a pale glow as the first light of July 16th filtered through my window. I rose quietly, mindful not to disturb the stillness. Dressing in my flight suit once more, I felt the familiar weight of each fastening and zip, a tactile reassurance of the protective shell that would soon encase me. My reflection in the mirror showed a man transformed, the softness of night replaced by a resolute calm. I took a moment to gather small personal items, a photograph of my wife's smiling face, a token from my children, a simple pocket watch, arranging them carefully in my flight bag. These mementos, though small, carried the warmth of Earth's embrace, a tether between my past and the journey ahead. With each careful placement, I whispered a silent promise to return, to see those smiles again. In the silence, I paused for a moment of meditation. Standing by the window, I placed a hand over my chest, feeling the slow thrum of my heartbeat. I breathed deeply, drawing the crisp morning air into my lungs, centering my thoughts on this singular mission: to explore, to learn, and to lead humanity forward. The gentle murmur of activity beyond my door reminded me that the world was stirring, and soon history would awaken with me. At 5:45 a.m, a soft tap at the door signaled the arrival of the technician with my final pre-launch vitals check. Under the nurturing glow of a dimmed lamp, they recorded blood pressure, pulse and temperature, each reading a reassuring confirmation of my physical readiness. Their presence was calm and professional, a testament to the countless support teams dedicated to our success. I thanked them, offering a small smile that carried more gratitude than words could express. Stepping into the corridor, I felt the subtle vibration of the facility coming to life. Engines of the launch complex were being readied. Distant clanks and the hum of generators rose like a modern symphony. Technicians in crisp uniforms moved with purposeful precision. I navigated this orchestrated bustle as though moving through a familiar dance, each step guided by training and faith. Breakfast arrived in a covered tray: soft eggs, whole grain toast, and sliced fruit. I ate slowly, honouring the nourishment as the foundation for the energy I would soon need. Each bite was taken with conscious intention, a final communion with Earth's simple abundance. I reflected on the significance of full belly and grounded presence, knowing that soon my body would traverse a realm far beyond these comforts. By 6:30 a.m, I joined Buzz and Michael in the staging area. Our mutual nods conveyed unspoken solidarity. We reviewed the final mission timeline together, voices steady and clear. Then we shared a quiet moment of reflection, hands briefly clasping in a simple gesture of unity. This final exchange, without need for grand words, reinforced the bond that would carry us safely to the moon, and, God willing, back again. As we boarded the crawler transporter destined for Launch Complex 39A, anticipation rose like a tide. Through the windows, the massive Saturn V rocket towered above, its white sides gleaming in early sunlight. The vehicle began its slow journey, each rumble a heartbeat leading toward liftoff. I closed my eyes and exhaled, embracing the rising energy, the collective will of decades now focused into this single moment. By the time we arrived at the pad, the sun had cleared the horizon. Warm rays illuminated the gantry, revealing the intricate latticework that would soon retract to set us free. I felt the gentle breeze against my face, as if Earth itself was bidding us a soft, lingering farewell. In that instant, I was acutely aware of the fine line between stability and flight, between home and the great beyond. Preparing to exit the transport, I straightened in my seat, checked connections, and gathered my thoughts. The final edges of tomorrow's dream sharpened into clarity. The controlled explosion of engines, the roar that would carry us beyond these confines, the moment when Earth would fall away behind us. With a deep breath, I stepped onto the platform, ready to fulfill a promise to myself, to my crew, and to every dreamer who had ever looked to the skies for inspiration. Day 3, July 16th, 1969. Liftoff day. The hours before dawn carry a unique stillness, the world holding its breath in anticipation. I awakened to a gentle chime from the onboard clock, marking the first moments of this monumental day. Through the small porthole window, I glimpsed the pale glow of pre-dawn light creeping across the horizon, lending a soft silver lining to the towering form of the Saturn V rocket outside. I sat up slowly, feeling the slight stiffness in my muscles, a reminder of yesterday's long preparations. Dressing into my flight suit once more, I allowed each movement to be calm and deliberate. The locks and folds of the fabric reminded me of the life-sustaining cocoon that would protect me during the launch. I took a deep breath, inhaling the conditioned air, centering my mind on the task ahead. Breakfast arrived quietly, in contrast to the roaring engines that would soon dominate our senses. A tray of oatmeal, toast, and fruit provided sustenance and calm. Buzz and Michael joined me, our movements deliberate, our words minimal, each nod, each glance communicating volumes. We each had our personal rituals, a quiet prayer, a mental checklist, a moment of gratitude. These rituals aligned our spirits, reinforcing the focus needed for the day's challenges. At 6:32 a.m., we made our way to the launch control area. The corridors seemed to hum with energy, technicians and engineers moving with calculated purpose, their faces illuminated by console lights and data streams. The soft glow of status panels and the distant hum of machinery painted a picture of orchestrated precision. In this controlled ballet, every individual played a vital role, propelling us toward liftoff. Reaching the White Room, the final passage into the spacecraft, I paused for a moment. The air felt electric, tinged with anticipation. Technicians in cleanroom suits moved around us, performing last-minute checks of the hatch, communication links, and suit connections. Each confirmation, each copy, each signed slip reinforced our readiness. I felt a profound gratitude for these unseen guardians of our safety. Climbing up the narrow ladder into the command module, I was struck by the compactness of our future home. Panels of switches, gauges, and circuits lined every surface. The tiny window framed a view of the launch pad's umbilical arms, ready to retract when engines ignited. I settled into my seat, fastening straps and checking displays. The familiar weight and resistance of each buckle offered assurance. Here, training and reality converged. Inside, the cabin was quiet except for the soft hiss of life support systems. I flexed my fingers, feeling the pressurized gloves respond to movement. Buzz and Michael took their positions in the pilot's and module pilot seats. Brief eye contact exchanged, a shared recognition. This was the moment we had prepared for all our lives. The final minutes were filled with calm procedural calls. Inboard umbilical disconnect, check. Auto sequence start or armed. Each report marked another link severed from Earth, another step toward independence. Outside, the ground crew completed their final duties. The white foam of the service structure was retracting, revealing the bare silhouette of the Saturn V. The 5 F1 engines loomed like great beasts waiting to roar. My heart, trained to steady precision, felt a tight excitement, a blend of exhilaration and solemn responsibility. At exactly 9:32 a.m., the countdown reached 0. A deep rumble began, building into a roar that shook the very core of the launch pad. The vibration resonated through every bone of the rocket and transmitted into our seats like a living pulse. Through the small window, flames blossomed beneath the engines, bright and immense. For a brief instant, I felt the Earth's powerful embrace, resisting our ascent. Then we rose. Slowly at first, then with growing urgency, the massive vehicle climbed. The vibration intensified, and the roar enveloped our world. In that moment, all training, every simulation, every procedure receded into a singular focus, becoming air, leaving the ground behind. As we pierced the cloud layer, sunlight streamed into the cabin, casting patterns on wires and panels, a blessing of illumination. Moments later, we hit max Q, the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure. The cabin vibrated more intensely, but the F1 engines adjusted their thrust, smoothly guiding the rocket through this critical phase. I monitored gauges, confirming parameters remained nominal. A subtle smile crept across my face. This was the culmination of years of design and engineering, the living proof of human ingenuity. As the first stage separated, I experienced a gentle jolt, like losing one piece of a well-practiced puzzle. Through the window, I watched the spent stage tumble away, its engines glowing briefly before fading into the sky. The next stage ignited, and we continued our ascent, the cabin now quieter, focused on the path upward. 10 minutes into flight, the command module's guidance system announced orbit insertion. Engines throttled down, and with a final adjustment burn, we achieved a stable parking orbit around Earth. Silence filled the cabin, broken only by our breaths and the soft chirp of system check-ins. Looking out, the Earth curved beneath us, a blue and white orb awash in sunlight. I felt an overwhelming sense of awe and responsibility. This view was both a triumph and a reminder of home. Floating free in microgravity, I unclipped from my harness and floated toward the window. My breath caught as I gazed at the planet's swirling clouds, land masses, and vast oceans. The boundary between sky and space felt thin, ethereal. I whispered a silent greeting to the world below, a vow to return with stories and discoveries. For the rest of the orbit, we performed system checks, stabilized our trajectory, and prepared for translunar injection. Each task was conducted with calm precision, an affirmation of our readiness for the next stage. As Earth rotated beneath us, I allowed a moment to reflect on how far we had come, from childhood dreams to liquid-fueled rockets, from training simulations to real-time control. The journey was only beginning, but already it felt timeless and profound. In this quiet interlude, surrounded by the hum of equipment and the infinite stretch of space just beyond the cabin, I felt the true magnitude of our mission. We were not merely passengers, we were ambassadors of Earth, explorers venturing into the unknowable. The next chapter awaited. The path to the moon would soon unfold, guided by stars and science alike. The final strands of Earth's atmosphere slipped away behind us, and soon the vast expanse of space enveloped the cabin in silent black velvet. With translunar injection complete, our trajectory was set on the path that would carry us 240,000 miles toward the lunar sphere of influence. In those moments, I felt both exhilaration and solemn duty, travelling farther from home than any human before. As the cabin settled into quiet, I checked our navigation displays, confirming inertial references aligned with mission parameters. Michael monitored the guidance computer's status, and Buzz verified life support readings. Our practiced choreography unfolded seamlessly, a testament to the countless hours spent in simulations. Each confirmation whispered assurance that our training was real, reliable, and invaluable. After completing primary checklists, Buzz suggested we take a moment for a simple meal. He retrieved pouches of dehydrated eggs and bacon, warmed them in the food heater, and we ate in microgravity, using special clips to secure the trays. Floating particles drifted gently as we sipped juice through straws. The meal felt surreal yet comforting, a reminder that even in space we sustained ourselves with humble nourishment. Following our meal, I drifted toward the viewing port, pressing my forehead gently against the window frame. Outside, the earth glowed like a jewel against darkness. In that view was the totality of human experience, every city, every ocean, every life. I whispered a silent greeting, sending gratitude to the generations of scientists and dreamers who made this possible. Sleep on the spacecraft required special restraints. Later, I secured myself in a cocoon-like sleeping bag attached to the cabin wall. The absence of gravity allowed my body to float in neutral comfort. I closed my eyes, letting the hum of the spacecraft's environmental systems lull me into rest. In dreams, I felt the pull of the moon's gravity increasing, guiding our voyage toward a distant shore. Morning came not by sunrises, but by clocks. My wake alarm sounded, and I unfastened, floating free into the narrow corridor. Dawn on the spacecraft felt timeless, yet our schedules remained precise. We began the day with physical exercises, stretches and resistance band routines to counteract muscle atrophy. The simple routine felt strange without gravity's weight, but reminded me of my body's resilience. Next came a systems inspection, checking cooling loops, power levels, and communication arrays. I reviewed incoming telemetry from Houston, noting a strong signal and crisp clarity in Mission Control's guidance. In this moment, I felt the connective thread linking Earth and spacecraft, an invisible lifeline of radio waves and shared purpose. As the second day in transit unfolded, I allowed my thoughts to wander. I reflected on the enormity of space, the silence broken only by our voices, and the subtle whir of machinery. The vacuum outside was indifferent, yet our presence brought intention, curiosity, exploration, and hope. I pondered the future of human exploration, imagining vessels voyaging to Mars and beyond, born from this first leap toward another world. Midday, Buzz and I prepared for a television broadcast. A small camera was mounted in the cabin, and we took turns speaking to the world below. I described our view of Earth, a bright marble suspended in darkness, and shared a simple message of unity and peace. The broadcast was brief, yet it carried profound significance. Humans in space, reaching out to every corner of our planet. After the broadcast, I returned to personal time. I retrieved my notebook and penned reflections on the journey, the silence, the views, the unity with my crew, and the bond with Earth's inhabitants. Writing in microgravity required patience. Pen strokes drifted until captured by the paper's surface. Yet, each word grounded me, preserving the fleeting emotions of this voyage. As evening approached, we conducted a mid-course correction burn. With the command module's thrusters aligned, we executed a short firing sequence, adjusting our trajectory to ensure precise lunar intercept. The gentle jolt was barely perceptible, yet it marked our active control over the silent void. Once stable, I exhaled deeply, feeling the culmination of science, teamwork, and trust. In the final quiet hours, I prepared for sleep once more. Floating back to my sleeping station, I gazed out at a sky adorned with stars unimpeded by Earth's atmosphere. The Milky Way stretched across the darkness, an ethereal band of light. I whispered a final thought of gratitude to my family, to my crew, and to every person whose efforts made this voyage possible. Securing myself for rest, I listened to the soft, mechanical heartbeat of the spacecraft. My body, freed from Earth's pull, drifted into tranquility. As I closed my eyes, my mind traced the luminous arc from our launch pad to the quiet horizon of the moon, knowing that with dawn we would edge ever closer to stepping onto that pale surface. Day 4, July 17th, 1969, approaching the moon. As I awaken in microgravity, the cabin feels unusually still, as if space itself is holding its breath. Today we approach our celestial destination. Through the small porthole, the moon's grey surface grows steadily larger, its craters and maria coming into sharper relief against the blackness of space. Each rotation of our command module brings new contours into view, a silent promise of exploration awaiting our arrival. I begin the day with a systems status check. Instruments and gauges line the panel before me, each displaying vital information. Cabin pressure stable, coolant temperatures nominal, guidance computer operating within expected tolerances. I record the readings carefully, my voice calm as I read them aloud to Houston. Their clear, steady responses remind me of the seamless teamwork spanning hundreds of thousands of miles. After completing initial checks, we prepare for lunar orbit insertion, LOI. This critical burn will place us into a stable orbit around the moon, the first time humans will circle another world. Flight controllers guide us through the sequence, thruster orientation, engine ignition commands, and estimated burn duration. The moments before the maneuver are filled with a solemn hush, each of us focused and composed. The burn begins. A low rumble vibrates through the spacecraft, the thrusters firing in precise bursts. I monitor the timers and gauges, confirming each phase completes as planned. Minutes later, the engines cease and silence returns. Through the window, I see the moon's horizon shift, its curve more pronounced, signaling our successful insertion into lunar orbit. A quiet cheer passes through our small crew. We have reached a new chapter in human history. July 18th, 1969. Circling the moon. Our first full orbit provides a breathtaking panorama. The stark contrast between the sunlit surface and the inky shadows of craters evokes a profound sense of awe. Buzz and Michael join me at the viewport, and in quiet reverence, we take turns describing the lunar terrain to Houston's cameras. Each description carries our wonder and respect for this silent world. Between science observations, we perform system calibrations and adjust our trajectory for the upcoming lunar module rendezvous. The ascent stage must undock precisely and dock again after descent. Any misalignment could jeopardize our return. Each calculation is double-checked, each maneuver practiced mentally. The gravity of this responsibility settles within me, tempered by confidence in our training and each other's expertise. Later, I float toward the middeck to review photographic film from previous orbits. Images of landing sites, geological formations, and potential hazards are spread across the small table. I handle each frame with care, noting the patterns of light and shadow. These photographs will guide our descent, offering a visual map to the uncharted surface below. As the hours pass, the moon's terminator, the line between light and darkness, glides across the surface. The play of light reveals subtle variations in terrain, from smooth plains to jagged highlands. I record my observations in the mission log, my words capturing both technical details and personal reflections. The moon feels alive beneath us, a silent landform shaped over eons. We pause for a simple meal, floating together as we share pouches of protein bars and fruit juice. The camaraderie and shared sustenance brings comfort and solidarity. In this brief interlude, we allow ourselves to appreciate how far we have come, unified by a singular goal: to touch this ancient world and safely return with its secrets. As the final orbits continue, we prepare the lunar module for separation. Buzz and I conduct a detailed review of docking mechanisms, communication links, and environmental systems. Each switch, each connector is tested and verified. Our mental rehearsals in simulators echo in the hushed cabin. Every step has been practiced, but the real moment lies ahead. In the quiet hours before sleep, I float to the viewing port one last time. The moon glows softly, a silent sentinel in the void. I whisper a vow: to honor this journey, to carry its lessons back to Earth, and to remember the fragile beauty of our world as seen from the darkest expanse. With that, I secure myself in the sleeping bag, settling into dreams filled with cratered landscapes and distant horizons. Tomorrow we will descend. Tonight we rest in lunar orbit, ambassadors of humanity gazing upon another world for the first time. Morning in lunar orbit came not with sunrise, but with our internal clocks. I awoke to the gentle beeping of the onboard chronometer, signalling tasks for the day ahead. The sight of the moon's surface filling the viewport stirred both excitement and solemn responsibility. Today, Buzz and I will descend in the lunar module Eagle to a surface untouched by human footsteps. We began with a pre-descent checklist in the mid-deck. I reviewed the checklist items aloud, each line matching precise data on the display panels. Reaction control systems, green. Descent engine readiness, nominal. Environmental controls, stable. Communication audio, checked with Houston. Voices crisp and reassuring. With every item confirmed, the moment of separation inched closer. Next, Buzz and I suited up in our pressure garments. The layering was methodical. Undergarments, thermal garments, then the pressure suit itself, each zip and strap a promise of safety. Technicians assisted, ensuring gloves fit snugly and helmet seals were intact. Michael hovered nearby, his calm presence reminding us that while our journey was unique, it remained inseparable from the unity of our crew. In the command module, I joined Michael for a brief joint briefing. He provided last-minute updates on the command module systems, the orbit parameters, and our rendezvous plan for ascent. His detailed explanations offered a comforting assurance that our return path would be secure, a necessary anchor before descending into the unknown. Returning to the mid-deck, Buzz and I made final configurations on the lunar module. The confined space felt both familiar, from training, and extraordinarily momentous now. Buzz checked the landing radar and altitude sensors while I verified the guidance computer's targeting parameters. We ran through abort scenarios verbally, reinforcing responses until they became instinctual. As the time approached, we performed a final communication check with Houston. I saw the words Eagle, Houston, light up on the displays. My heart steadied as I responded, Houston, Eagle. The brief exchange carried unspoken weight, a covenant between our team and the ground controllers who would guide us. At approximately 4 p.m. lunar time, the depressurization sequence began. The hiss of air leaving the tunnel signaled our detachment from Michael's command module. Through the small viewport, I watched the tunnel retract and the hatch seal close, enclosing Buzz and me within the lunar module. Moments later, we separated, the puffs of thrusters gently pushing Eagle away. The tiny spacecraft shuddered once, then drifted free in silent descent. Descending toward the surface, the lunar horizon expanded before us. I monitored altitude readouts as Buzz piloted, steering us toward our target zone. Every mile brought new details, crater rims, boulder fields, and the flat plains of Mare Tranquillitatis. The monochrome landscape felt otherworldly, yet strangely welcoming, like an ancient, silent cathedral built of rock and dust. At 400 feet, alarms signaled that manual input might be required. I switched to manual mode, guiding us slowly forward, searching for suitable ground. Dust kicked up beneath our thrusters, clouds of grey particles swirling in microgravity before settling gently. The view zoomed in on each detail, and I selected a landing spot clear of hazards. My voice was calm as I announced adjustments. Slight right, down 2, down 1. Then the moment arrived. Contact light. I felt the subtle shift as the landing pads touched the lunar soil. I breathed a measured sigh, and Buzz echoed softly. Engines stop. We had landed. For a heartbeat, silence reigned, broken only by our own breathing and distant radio chatter. We took a moment to steady ourselves, absorbing the reality of being the first to set foot in another world. The instrumentation confirmed systems stable, oxygen levels nominal, power sources active. Yet the greatest confirmation was the view outside, endless grey plains under a pitch-black sky. As Eagle's hatch opened, a plume of dust drifted out, scattering in low gravity before settling. Buzz gave me a nod, and I descended the ladder. Each rung felt weightless underfoot, the tension of history tempered by the soft bounce of lunar gravity. At the foot of the ladder, I paused, looking at the expanse before me. The world held its breath. In my mind, I whispered a message. That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. My foot touched the surface, and a sense of calm washed over me, a profound stillness, as though the moon itself embraced our arrival. I felt the dust beneath my boot, soft but firm, a connection between Earth and the heavens. Buzz joined me, and together we performed initial experiments, deploying the seismometer and collecting samples. Each action was deliberate, careful, yet imbued with wonder. The surface shimmered under the sun, casting long, sharp shadows that stretched across the plains. After several hours, it was time to rest and reflect before ascent. We climbed back into Eagle, hearts full of awe. As I strapped in, I looked once more at the silent landscape, committing each detail to memory. The hatch closed, sealing our small world within the broader vastness. Soon we will return to Michael overhead to share our experiences and prepare for the journey home. But tonight we rest on another world. Ambassadors of Earth under a foreign sky. Sleep will come differently here, with lunar gravity and the silent watch of distant stars. Yet as I drift off, I carry the quiet wonder of this day and the promise of tomorrow's ascent. Day 5, July 21st, 1969. Dawn on the moon. A gentle chime from my watch alarm marked the beginning of another extraordinary day. The lunar module Eagle lay nestled on the silent plains of Mare Tranquillitatis, its ascent stage dark against the pale horizon. Through the small viewport, I watched the sun's slanted rays illuminate the dusty surface, casting long, cool shadows that stretched like brushstrokes across the grey landscape. I flexed my fingers, feeling the slight resistance of the pressure gloves. The confined cabin was quiet except for the soft hiss of environmental controls. Next to me, Buzz stirred, his face illuminated by the soft glow of instrument panels. We shared a nod, a silent acknowledgement that today we would take our second excursion on this otherworldly surface. After confirming life support systems were stable, we began our pre-EVA checklist. The lunar module's interior seemed even more cramped now, every switch and valve a critical interface with the unforgiving environment outside. I ran through each item methodically. Oxygen flow, communications channels, suit integrity. With each tone of check from Buzz and Houston, my confidence grew, anchored in the precision of our training and the reliability of our equipment. Stepping into the depressurized tunnel, I felt the mechanical click as the inner hatch sealed. The hiss of air escaping signaled our separation from the sealed cabin. I paused, taking a deep breath before attaching my helmet. The suit's visor locked firmly into place, sealing me in a world of my own making. As the outer hatch opened, a rush of lunar dust drifted inward, dancing in microgravity before settling motionless. The first rays of sunlight hit the module's footpad, illuminating the fine regolith in a swirl of gold and grey. I placed a boot onto the first rung of the ladder, heart steady, breath calm. Each footfall on the second rung reminded me of the profound significance of our shared human endeavour. Reaching the surface, I stepped off the ladder and onto the moon's dusty floor. The sensation was unlike anything on Earth. The gravity, 1/6 of Earth's, allowed for gentle buoyancy in each movement. My boots sank slightly into the powdery regolith, leaving clear imprints that would endure for eons. I paused, letting the silence of the lunar plain envelop me. There was no wind, no ambient noise, only the crisp transmission of my own voice in the helmet's earpiece and Buzz's calm tones from behind. Our first task was to deploy the early Apollo Scientific Experiments package, EASEP. Together, Buzz and I worked seamlessly, positioning the seismometer, anchoring its legs in the soft soil, running cables to the central station. With each connection, I thought of the silent tremors it would detect, echoes of meteoroid impacts and the moon's subtle vibrations, secrets long hidden beneath that dusty crust. Next, Buzz set up the laser-ranging retroreflector, a simple array of prisms designed to reflect Earth-based laser pulses back to their source. The device gleamed in the sunlight as he adjusted its angle with practiced precision. In Houston, I heard the muted excitement in Mission Control's voices, realizing that this instrument would enable scientists to measure the distance between Earth and Moon with unprecedented accuracy for decades to come. With experiments deployed, we moved on to sample collection. Carefully, we knelt and scooped regolith into labelled containers, noting the texture, fine grains mixed with small rock fragments. Buzz collected a core sample, pushing a tube into the soil to retrieve a stratified column of lunar layers. I observed the subtle colour variations, a tapestry of geological history formed over billions of years. As we worked, Earth rose above the horizon, a brilliant blue and white sphere suspended in blackness. The sight filled me with profound humility and awe, our fragile home seen from a place no other human had stood. I spoke softly into the headset. "Houston, this is tranquility," pausing as emotions welled within. Briefly, I allowed myself to absorb the beauty and isolation of this moment. Our time outside was limited by life support constraints. Buzz and I moved deliberately through each task, balancing scientific objectives with careful awareness of our surroundings. The lunar dust clung to our suits, a stubborn reminder of the environment's unique properties. I resisted the urge to annotate every thought. Instead, I focused on each action, each measurement, present in the unfolding history. As the sun climbed higher, shadows shortened, and the temperature began to change. We packed each instrument carefully, tucking cables and securing lids. The final task was to plant the American flag, a symbolic gesture witnessed by millions on Earth. Together, Buzz and I positioned the pole, extending its horizontal crossbar to hold the fabric out in the airless environment. The flag's stars and stripes stood erect, frozen in time, a testament to human ingenuity and collaboration. With our EVA complete, we retraced our steps to the ladder. Each step upward felt both farewell and anticipation. At the hatch, I paused to look back at the footprints and planted flag, committing the scene to memory. The inner hatch sealed with a reassuring thud, and I exhaled, letting the familiar hum of cabin air soothe any lingering tension. Inside the Eagle, we removed our helmets and secured the sample containers. Buzz read out the sample masses, and I logged each entry meticulously in the mission file. Our hearts were still beating rapidly, but our voices remained calm and professional, another affirmation of the synergy between excitement and discipline. As we settled into our seats, I reflected on the EVA's achievements. The experiments would yield data for generations. The samples would unlock secrets of lunar formation, and our footsteps would forever mark humanity's first tangible presence on another world. The moon was no longer just a distant dream. It had become a place we had touched, studied, and honoured. In the remaining daylight, we prepared for a brief rest and another sleep cycle in lunar gravity. I floated to the small bunk area, the Earth's glow peering through the viewport, and allowed my thoughts to drift between silence and wonder. As sleep approached, I whispered thanks to my crew, to Mission Control, and to every dreamer who had ever looked up and imagined walking among the stars. Late afternoon on the lunar surface brought a gentle shift in light as the sun's rays angled more deeply across the grey plains. Inside the Eagle, Buzz and I prepared for a second rest period in our pressure suits. The narrow cabin space had become home, laboratory, and sanctuary all at once. We moved deliberately, conserving energy and honouring the rhythm of this extraordinary day. Before settling in, I reviewed our remaining tasks: final system checks, stowage of unused equipment, and preparatory steps for ascent. Each action was performed with calm precision, the quiet hum of instruments, our steady companion. Buzz and I exchanged a brief smile, a silent bond forged by shared accomplishment and anticipation of the journey ahead. Secured in our sleeping bags, I floated gently, tethered to the cabin wall. Through the viewport, I watched Earth drift slowly across the sky, its colours muted but unmistakable. I whispered aloud, "Good night, Earth," feeling a warmth spread in my chest despite the cold of space. In this captive, rotating world, the concept of night was redefined, but the comfort of connection remained strong. My thoughts drifted back to the experiments we had deployed earlier. The seismometer listening for quiet lunar quakes, the laser reflector awaiting pulses from Earth. I imagined those instruments silently gathering data, expanding human knowledge without fanfare. Each represented a piece of humanity's legacy, left behind to speak on our behalf long after our departure. Sleep came in fits, moments of dreamlike floating, fragments of childhood memories interwoven with visions of future exploration. In one dream, I walked on a beach under unfamiliar stars. In another, I watched my own reflection against the blackness of space. The boundary between mind and cosmos felt porous, as though the moon's solitude invited introspection beyond time and place. I awoke briefly to check instruments, ensuring oxygen levels remained steady and suit pressure within safe limits. The small window showed shifting shadows on the lunar surface, an external reminder that even here, time moved forward. Each check reinforced the blend of vigilance and wonder that defined this mission. Moments later, I drifted back into rest, allowing the low murmur of environmental systems to lull me once more. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, bright pinpricks against the void. I felt both infinitesimal and integral, a lone figure in a vast expanse yet connected to every heartbeat on Earth. When my watch alarm signaled the end of the rest period, I emerged from my sleeping bag. Buzz mirrored my movements, and we shared a quiet nod. The final hours on the lunar surface awaited: ascent preparations, hatch closure, and reunion with Michael in lunar orbit. I rose to perform a last inspection of our environment. The cabin air felt still, filtered and recycled, carrying faint traces of lunar dust. I checked power levels and communications channels, ensuring readiness for the critical moments ahead. Each reading was nominal, reinforcing the reliability of our vessel and systems. Before donning helmets again, I floated to the viewport to take a final glance at the landing site. The flag stood motionless, its fabric frozen in place by the horizontal bar. Footprints traced a path of exploration and discovery, a testament to human curiosity and courage. I took a mental photograph, imprinting the scene in memory. Buzz and I then methodically powered down non-essential systems in the ascent stage, securing panels and stowing tools. The cabin's ambient light dimmed as we prepared for the bright glare of space beyond the hatch. Our movements were deliberate, respectful of the craft that had been both protector and conveyance. Donning helmets and seals, we reviewed the ascent checklist. Houston's voices crackled warmly through the comlink, offering encouragement and clarity. "Eagle, you are go," they confirmed. I felt a quiet surge of gratitude for their steadfast guidance. At the command, I initiated the ascent engine sequence. The engines fired, a gentle push upward, lifting Eagle from its resting place. The lunar gravity clung to us briefly before relenting, allowing the ascent stage to rise smoothly into the black sky. Through the window, I watched the surface recede, Mare Tranquillitatis growing distant. Moments later, docking maneuvers commenced. I guided our ascent toward Michael's awaiting command module, aligning thrusters and timing each burn with precision. The hatch opened, and I felt a subtle shift as our two worlds rejoined. Michael greeted us with an exuberant wave, and for an instant, the cabin felt whole once again. Reunited, we transferred the collected samples and experiment data. The cabin buzzed with renewed energy, conversations flowing about impressions, observations, and the view of Earth from above. Each of us carried distinct memories of the surface, yet shared an unbreakable bond forged in lunar dust. As our trajectory set us on the path home, I took one last look at the moon drifting below. Its silent presence filled me with wonder and a promise to share its story, to continue exploring, and to remember the fragile beauty of our home planet. In that moment, I felt the weight of history and the lightness of possibility entwined, guiding us toward tomorrow's horizon. Day 6, July 22nd, 1969, heading home. In the quiet after lunar orbit rendezvous, I awake to the gentle glow of Earthlight filtering through the command module's small window. The ascent stage of Eagle has long since docked and been jettisoned, leaving Michael, Buzz and me to begin our journey home. The cabin feels spacious again, filled with the ambient hum of life support and guidance systems, a comforting reminder of the vessel that will carry us safely across hundreds of thousands of miles. Our first task of the day is a thorough systems assessment. I report my status to Houston. Cabin pressure stable, temperature nominal, power levels within expected parameters. Michael checks the guidance computer readout, confirming our translunar trajectory remains precise. Buzz monitors environmental controls, verifying oxygen and carbon dioxide scrubbers are functioning optimally. Each check is conducted with calm focus, reflecting the culmination of years of training and preparation. After completing checks, we prepare for a quiet meal. Pouches of rehydrated soup and fruit provide sustenance as we reflect on the past days. Taste remains muted in microgravity, but the act of eating together fosters camaraderie. Buzz raises a toast, juice through our helmet straws, to the successful lunar landing and safe return. We smile, acknowledging both achievement and the challenges still ahead. The midday hours find us reviewing photographic documentation. I float to the storage rack, retrieving film canisters from experiments on the surface. We examine images of seismic data plots and high-resolution panoramas captured by surface cameras. Each photo is a visual time capsule, preserving details of lunar geology and mission operations. I run through initial impressions with Houston, underscoring areas of scientific interest and potential follow-up in future missions. Later, we conduct a deep space television broadcast, sharing experiences and views with those watching on Earth. The camera pans across the cabin, capturing the curvature of our planet hanging against the backdrop of space. I speak softly. From here, Earth appears as a delicate oasis in a vast expanse. Let us cherish and protect it. The transmission ends with applause from Mission Control, a bridge between our small crew and the billions waiting below. In the afternoon, we perform routine maintenance on the reaction control system thrusters. Michael and I float amidst the console panels, guiding small wrenches and replacement filters. The absence of gravity makes each movement deliberate but graceful. As I tighten a valve, I reflect on how every component, no matter how minute, contributes to our collective safety and mission success. A moment of rest follows. I float to my sleeping station, still tethered, and allow my mind to drift. Instead of dreams, my thoughts trace the journey's arc, from Earth to Moon and back. Memories of the lunar surface merge with sensations of launch and orbit, forming a tapestry of human endeavour against the infinite silence. In these reflections, I find gratitude for my crew, our support teams, and every individual who believed in this mission. As twilight on the spacecraft gives way to the steady glow of instrument lights, we prepare for one last critical manoeuvre, the mid-course correction, burn to refine our return angle. The burn sequence requires precise timing. Any misalignment could affect our re-entry conditions. We gather at our stations, voices calm as we follow the burn procedure. The engine's gentle pulse nudges us onto the perfect path, and I confirm completion with a sense of quiet triumph. Finally, as the day winds down, I take a moment at the viewport. Earth's blue marble has grown larger, its land masses and oceans more defined. I whisper a silent vow to my home planet, to share our story, to honour its beauty, and to inspire future generations. With that, I settle into my bunk, the soft tendrils of sleep beckoning after a day of reflection and anticipation for our homecoming. After stowing tools and securing panels, I float to the centre of the command module, gazing out the window at the cosmos unfolding around us. The vastness of space stretches infinitely, studded with distant stars whose light travels across eons to reach us. In this silent expanse, I reflect on how fleeting our individual lives are against the grand tapestry of time and space. I retrieve my notebook and pen, both floating gently beside me. I jot down observations, the clarity of the Milky Way, the contrast of Earth's vibrant colours against blackness, and the profound sense of interconnectedness I feel with every being on our planet. Writing in microgravity feels poetic, each line drifting until captured by paper, echoing how thoughts drift within the mind. As the spacecraft orbits further from any planetary body, weightlessness becomes ever more immersive. Buzz and Michael share quiet anecdotes of family and home, their voices a comforting reminder of shared humanity. In between, we review mission logs, preparing our final reports on experiments, observations, and personal reflections. Later, we conduct a medical check via video link with the flight surgeon. I demonstrate a series of in-cabin exercises, flexibility stretches, resistance band routines to illustrate our physical condition. The surgeon notes vital signs and provides reassurance about muscle and bone health. The exchange highlights the toll and resilience of the human body in space. The day begins with a final deep space television session. This time, I address school children, offering encouragement to pursue science and exploration. Their eager faces and thoughtful questions remind me of my own youthful fascination with the stars. I speak of perseverance, curiosity, and the importance of dreaming big. After the broadcast, we turn to final preparations for re-entry. Heat shield inspections, parachute deployment tests, and communication checks fill the afternoon. Each step is executed with calm precision. I handle a sensor probe, remembering how this small device will transform from metal instrument to our protector against fiery descent. As Earth grows ever larger in our viewport, I feel anticipation mingled with solemn respect. The brilliant blue and white sphere rotates slowly, clouds drifting over oceans and continents. I reflect on the responsibility of return, not only our lives but the safe delivery of scientific data and lunar samples. With hours to re-entry, we rest briefly, allowing our minds and bodies to prepare for the physical demands ahead. Sleep in microgravity remains elusive, but the quiet vigil offers a moment to internalize the journey's significance. When the time arrives, we strap into our seats, harnesses securing us against forces yet to come. The cabin grows tense with focused energy. I check instrument readouts one last time. Trajectory, attitude, and velocity all within nominal ranges. The retrofire burn ignites, and the command module's orientation aligns for re-entry. The heat shield faces the oncoming flow, ready to absorb the tremendous friction. I feel the subtle push as we break free of translunar coast. In the communication silence that follows, I imagine the brilliant plasma trail forming outside, our ticket home glowing hot against the cold void. My thoughts turn inward as I recall the lunar surface's dusty silence and Earth's gentle skies. Moments later, Mission Control's voice returns. "You're on your way." A collective exhale sweeps through the cabin. We brace for G-forces, trusting our training and technology. Re-entry will be intense, but I carry with me the serenity of lunar dawn, the wonder of Earthrise, and the quiet bonds of crew and mission control. In the coming hours, we will reunite with our home planet, carrying stories and samples that will shape humanity's future explorations. Day 7, July 24th, 1969. Earth return. Soft warnings from the onboard chronometer gently roused me from rest. The command module had separated from the service module after retrofire, and now we coasted toward Earth. Through the small triangular window, I watched blue curvature grow, clouds swirling above familiar lands and oceans. Homecoming lay ahead, a moment decades in the making. Our first task was to verify re-entry configuration. I reported to Houston, heat shield oriented correctly, descent angle locked, parachute circuits armed. Michael cross-checked the inertial alignment, confirming the capsule's attitude. Buzz monitored communications arrays, ensuring our link to mission control remained robust. Each check brought us closer to the atmosphere's welcoming embrace. Breakfast in microgravity felt different today, a brief ritual to steady nerves. I rehydrated oatmeal, savouring its warmth. Buzz floated nearby, securing his tray against the cabin wall. We shared quiet smiles, acknowledging the journey's end was near. We then reviewed the mission's scientific logs. I retrieved film, data tapes, and lunar samples stored in protective containers. Each weighed more heavily in my hands than in gravity, tangible proof of our voyage. Carefully I inspected labels, regolith cores, rock fragments, seismometer logs. These treasures would yield knowledge long after our return. Next, we prepared the cabin for re-entry. Non-essential equipment was stowed, loose objects secured. The narrow cabin felt both sanctuary and vessel, shielding us from fiery descent. I checked latches on storage compartments one last time, mentally reviewing the re-entry sequence: plasma sheath formation, peak G-forces, parachute deployment, splashdown. Mid-morning brought a conversation with Mission Control. Their voices conveyed pride and reassurance. We exchanged final reflections, our observations of Earth's beauty, the silent grandeur of space, and the unshakable bond between crew and ground. I took a moment to express gratitude on behalf of our team. Thank you for carrying us safely throughout this mission. As Earth drew larger, I felt anticipation mix with solemnity. This planet, vibrant with life, would soon welcome us back. I drifted to the viewport, tracing coastlines and mountain ranges. From this vantage, borders vanished. Humanity's diversity blended into a shared tapestry of land and water. The hours before re-entry passed in calm preparation. I reviewed emergency procedures, ensuring I could respond instinctively if anomalies arose. Training echoed in my mind. Simulator sessions, checklist rehearsals, emergency drills, each honing reflexes for precisely this moment. Late afternoon, I secured myself in the re-entry couch. The harness straps held me firmly, and I settled into position. The cabin lights dimmed in readiness. Through the hatch, a glow of twilight shimmered on the horizon, signaling Earth's atmosphere just beyond reach. At exactly 18:03 GMT, Houston announced our entry interface. The capsule's nose tilted upwards slightly, optimal for generating lift against the atmospheric flow. I felt the first brush of friction as the temperature gauges climbed. A deep orange plasma enveloped our world, visible through the black window as a blazing curtain. The G-forces built steadily, 1G, 2G, then a steady 5G, pressing me into the seat. My body, conditioned by training, absorbed each surge. I focused on steady breathing, each inhale and exhale measured to maintain calm. The roar outside was deafening, transformed by the hull into a low-frequency hum that resonated through every bone. As we decelerated, the peak heating passed and the plasma sheath dissipated. The cabin lights returned to normal, and relief washed through me. We were through the worst of re-entry. I reported status to Houston. Heat shield performance nominal. Trajectory within tolerances. Then came the sonic booms. 2 distinct cracks announced our passage through supersonic speeds into subsonic flight. The capsule shook briefly before stabilizing. Through the small window, I saw the first wisps of clouds scudding beneath us. The next sequence would be parachute deployment and splashdown. The day I longed for was at hand. In the gentle descent toward home, I carried within me the lessons learned amid lunar dust and countless miles of void. Soon, we would touch water and be lifted to a waiting recovery ship, where new chapters of research and storytelling would begin. For now, I closed my eyes briefly, envisioning the calm sea below. The journey was nearly complete, and with it, a promise of sharing this adventure with a world waiting and watching for our return. Minutes after parachute deployment, the command module slowed to a gentle descent. I felt the slight buoyancy as the chutes absorbed our speed, the capsule swaying softly under their canopy. Through the window, I watched the vast Pacific Ocean draw nearer, its deep blue waters sparkling in the sunlight. The drogue chute had done its job. Now the 3 main parachutes carried us the final miles. Their cords stretched taut, whispering in the breeze of descent. I gripped the armrests, anticipation building, recalling every practiced moment in simulators. Brace for impact, expect a firm but forgiving landing. Then with a muted thud, the capsule made contact with the sea. A gentle rocking motion ensued as the flotation collar deployed, righting us upright. I exhaled slowly, feeling the settled calm of water beneath the hull. The roar of re-entry faded into silence, replaced by the rhythmic lap of waves against the side. Inside, Buzz and Michael shared quiet words of relief, smiles broad beneath suits still covered in fine condensation. I checked instrument readings. Hull integrity intact, cabin pressure nominal, communications open. A quick exchange confirmed our well-being. Mission Control's voices crackled with exhilaration. Welcome home, Apollo 11. Moments later, the command module's hatch was unlatched. I pulled it open, and sunlight flooded the interior. I looked out at the recovery helicopters overhead and the nearest naval vessel approaching. The world we knew stretched beyond the horizons, rescue teams, scientists, reporters, all converging to greet our arrival. With Michael's help, I unstrapped from the couch and floated toward the hatch. I paused, taking a deep breath of the filtered cabin air, tasting the faint hint of salt from the ocean mist. As I stepped onto the outside ladder, I felt the weight of Earth's gravity return, gently yet undeniably. Each rung brought a renewed awareness of home. At the top I emerged into the open air. The sun was warm, the wind gentle, carrying the scent of sea spray and engines. A recovery swimmer climbed aboard and offered assistance. His presence felt reassuring, a human touch after days of isolation. Secure on deck, I removed my helmet and oxygen pack, breathing freely once more. The horizontal bar tow line was attached, and the capsule was drawn alongside the ship's ladder. I grasped the rail and climbed onto the deck, greeted by fascinated faces and respectful applause. Standing on the recovery vessel's deck, I gazed out at the endless ocean and saw the tiny speck where we had landed. Behind me, the capsule bobbed gently, a vessel that had carried us to the moon and back. The juxtaposition filled me with profound gratitude for human ingenuity, teamwork, and perseverance. As I stepped forward onto solid ground, I felt the culmination of every dream and every step taken on lunar dust converge in this moment. The world watched, reporters called out questions, families celebrated, yet within me a quiet echo remained, the soft stillness of lunar mornings and the infinite horizons of space. Later, in the ship's infirmary, medical personnel checked our vitals and assisted us out of our suits. I thought of the journeys ahead, the debriefings, scientific analyses, and the return to everyday life. But tonight, I would cherish this moment. Earth's embrace, the gentle rocking of the deck, and the knowledge that our voyage had expanded the boundaries of human possibility. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting golden paths across the water, I closed my eyes briefly and offered thanks to the crew, to mission control, to every person who believed in this mission. Tomorrow we would share our stories with the world, but tonight I basked in the simple joy of being home. Historical context and reflections. Part 1. Immediate aftermath. Return to Earth and global reactions. On July 24, 1969, the world watched in awe as the Apollo 11 command module splashed down safely in the Pacific Ocean. For the 3 astronauts aboard, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, the journey home marked the culmination of years of training, national ambition, and scientific endeavour. Yet for billions on Earth, it was not only a technical triumph, but a moment of collective pride and relief. As the capsule bobbed gently in the water, recovery helicopters hovered overhead, and divers descended to secure lines around the spacecraft. The first images of Armstrong emerging from the hatch, silhouetted against the bright sky, were beamed live to television screens worldwide. News anchors described the scene with reverence, their voices hushed in recognition of history unfolding. Crowds gathered in public squares, from New York's Times Square to London's Trafalgar Square, cheering in unison as the astronauts were winched aboard the recovery ship USS Hornet. In Washington, D.C., President Richard Nixon awaited news with the nation's hopes on his shoulders. Shortly after splashdown, Nixon spoke via telephone from the White House. "This is the greatest week in the history of the world since the creation." His words conveyed both jubilation and the geopolitical weight of the achievement. Meanwhile, in countries allied with the United States, leaders issued statements of congratulation, framing Apollo 11 as a victory for peace and human progress. Media coverage was unprecedented. Newspapers ran multi-page spreads detailing technical diagrams of the Saturn V rocket, interviews with mission control staff, and timelines of the lunar excursion. Magazine covers featured evocative photos: Armstrong's footprint in the lunar dust, the American flag standing proud, and Earthrise as seen from lunar orbit. Radio broadcasts carried first-hand accounts from listeners, sharing tears of joy and messages of unity. Perhaps most notably, former adversaries extended their congratulations. In the Soviet Union, TASS released a brief statement acknowledging the success, a rare public nod of respect amid Cold War rivalry. In Beijing, state media offered cautious praise, framing the landing as a testament to mankind rather than any single nation. Across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, the lunar landing inspired aspirations of scientific advancement and space exploration programs. Back on board the USS Hornet, medical personnel conducted routine health checks as the astronauts stepped onto the deck, greeted by applause and embraced by recovery crews. Their spacesuits, once stiff and alien, were symbols of human ingenuity and daring. Armstrong and Aldrin underwent quarantine procedures, part of NASA's strict lunar protection protocols, while Collins remained with the command module. Despite separated living quarters, the crew remained eagerly connected, sharing their reflections and marvelling at how Earth looked from space. In the days that followed, ticker tape parades in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles celebrated the crew. Millions lined the streets, waving flags and cheering, "Welcome home!" The astronauts rode in open-top vehicles, helmets and gloves stowed alongside tokens of their historic journey. School children held signs reading, "One small step, one giant leap," while veterans of the space program, engineers, technicians, and support staff, stood proud on reviewing stands, finally recognized for their years of dedication. Internationally, flights over major landmarks broadcast continuous commentary. In Paris, crowds at the Eiffel Tower watched French television reports that intertwined footage of lunar experiments with reflections on Earth's fragility. In Tokyo, Japanese scientists praised the mission's data, recognizing its value for future lunar and planetary studies. Even in remote villages with limited access, radio receivers crackled with excited discussions as families gathered to partake in this shared global experience. Public reaction was not without nuance. Civil rights activists in the United States highlighted the irony of achieving racial unity on the lunar surface, while social divisions persisted at home. Environmentalists seized upon the Earthrise images to launch deeper conversations about pollution and conservation. Yet the landing's immediate aftermath fostered a sense of common destiny, a fleeting moment where national borders blurred under a shared sky. By the end of the week, Apollo 11 had transcended its technical narrative to become a cultural touchstone. Souvenir shops sold replicas of the lunar module, children's books marched in new editions, recounting the astronaut's journey, and songs referencing the moon climb the charts. The immediate aftermath of return demonstrated how a singular event could galvanize a global audience, instilling hope that humanity, when united by curiosity and purpose, could achieve the impossible. Part 2. Political impact, Cold War dynamics, and international relations. The success of Apollo 11 in July 1969 was not only a triumph of engineering, but also a critical juncture in Cold War geopolitics. For over a decade, the United States and the Soviet Union had competed fiercely in space exploration, each seeking to demonstrate technological and ideological superiority. The Soviet achievement of Sputnik in 1957 and Yuri Gagarin's orbital flight in 1961 had placed the USSR at the forefront of the space race, challenging America's global leadership. NASA's Apollo program was conceived in part to counter these Soviet milestones, and landing a man on the moon became a symbol of democratic capitalism's capacity for innovation and peaceful exploration. President John F. Kennedy's 1961 commitment to land a man on the moon before this decade is out galvanized Congress and the public, channeling vast resources into NASA. By 1969, tensions between the superpowers remained high, with conflicts in Vietnam, Berlin, and nuclear arms negotiations fracturing international relations. The achievement of Apollo 11 provided a diplomatic counterpoint, a demonstration that the United States could mobilize scientific expertise on a massive scale without resorting to direct military confrontation. Immediately after the landing, world leaders issued statements acknowledging the United States' accomplishment while emphasizing the mission's peaceful intent. Soviet Premier Alexei Kosygin, in a measured broadcast, congratulated the American people and expressed admiration for the mission's technical prowess. Although this praise did not signal a thaw in broader Cold War hostilities, it opened the door to increased cooperation in space science, leading to the Apollo-Soyuz test project of 1975, which marked the first joint US-Soviet spaceflight and the symbolic handshake in orbit between American and Soviet astronauts. Beyond the bilateral dynamic, Apollo 11 influenced US relations with allies and non-aligned nations. European NATO members viewed the moon landing as a reaffirmation of US global leadership, bolstering confidence in American security guarantees. In newly independent countries in Africa and Asia, the landing inspired admiration and hope, illustrating the possibilities of scientific and economic development. Leaders in India, Brazil, and Nigeria referenced Apollo 11 in speeches as a model for their own national modernization efforts. Domestically, the political impact was also profound. Congress leveraged the moon landing's popularity to justify continued funding for scientific research and higher education. However, some critics questioned the allocation of billions of dollars to space exploration amidst social unrest and economic inequality. The juxtaposition of the lunar triumph and domestic civil rights struggles led to debates about national priorities, shaping the discourse on public spending and foreign policy. In the United Nations, NASA's decision to leave the American flag on the lunar surface prompted extensive discussions on space law and sovereignty. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty, which declared celestial bodies the province of all mankind, gained renewed attention. Apollo 11's success underscored the need for clear guidelines on resource use, environmental protection, and collaborative scientific research in space, influencing subsequent international agreements. Overall, Apollo 11 reshaped Cold War dynamics by demonstrating that technological competition could yield peaceful, awe-inspiring achievements. It laid the groundwork for détente in the 1970s and established space exploration as a venue for both competition and cooperation among nations. Part 3: Scientific Legacy: Advances in Space Science and Technology. Apollo 11's moon landing catalyzed significant advances in space science and spurred innovations across engineering, materials science, and computing. The lunar module Eagle, lunar rover prototypes, and command module design introduced technologies that revolutionized spacecraft construction and mission planning. The development of high-thrust F1 engines for the Saturn V, lightweight heat-resistant materials for re-entry, and miniaturized instrumentation for life support systems set new standards for aerospace engineering. One of the most enduring scientific legacies is the wealth of lunar samples returned to Earth. Apollo 11 brought back 21.6 kilograms of lunar rock and soil, including breccias, basalts, and regolith, which provided the first direct evidence of the Moon's geological history. Laboratory analyses revealed insights into the Moon's formation, supporting the giant impact hypothesis, which posits that Earth collided with a Mars-sized body early in solar system history. Isotope dating of samples established that lunar crust solidified over 4 billion years ago, refining models of planetary differentiation. Beyond geology, Apollo 11's experiments laid the groundwork for long-term lunar science. The early Apollo Scientific Experiments Package, ECP, including the passive seismic experiment and laser-ranging retroreflector, transmitted data on moonquakes, meteoroid impacts, and Earth-Moon distance with unprecedented precision. These experiments continue to provide data. The retroreflector is still used in laser altimetry to measure subtle variations in the Moon's orbit and test theories of gravitational physics. In situ technology demonstrated on Apollo 11 influenced robotic exploration. Techniques for autonomous navigation, remote sensing, and sample acquisition informed the design of later missions, including the Mars rovers and unmanned lunar orbiters. The use of digital flight computers with limited processing power but reliable performance showcased early embedded systems that presaged modern microelectronics in consumer devices. Spin-off technologies from Apollo 11 research benefited sectors beyond space. Advances in vacuum metallurgy led to corrosion-resistant coatings used in medical devices and industrial machinery. Development of portable life support systems contributed to improvements in biomedical respirators and dive equipment. Innovations in water purification, radiation shielding, and insulation found applications in remote environmental monitoring and polar research stations. Furthermore, the computing demands of Apollo accelerated progress in software engineering. Mission control's reliance on real-time telemetry and data processing spurred the adoption of new programming methodologies, error-checking protocols, and user interface design for complex systems. Companies such as IBM, which supplied the Apollo guidance computer, leveraged their experience to lead in mainframe and later personal computing markets. Educational institutions also benefited directly. Universities that participated in NASA grants expanded their astrophysics and planetary science departments. Graduate students analyzed lunar samples, developed instrumentation, and modeled solar-wind interactions. This influx of research funding cultivated a generation of scientists who later directed missions such as Voyager, Hubble Space Telescope, and Mars Pathfinder. In summary, Apollo 11's scientific legacy endures through lunar geology breakthroughs, experimental packages still transmitting data, and technological innovations that spurred advancements across multiple industries. The mission's integrated approach to science, engineering, and exploration set a model for interdisciplinary collaboration that continues to inform space and terrestrial research. Part 4. Cultural Resonance, Art, Media, and Public Imagination. The moon landing transcended scientific achievement to become a defining cultural moment, inspiring artists, filmmakers, writers, and musicians. In the weeks following July 1969, galleries worldwide showcased space-inspired art, merging abstract expressionism with cosmic themes. Works by Robert Rauschenberg and Andy Warhol incorporated lunar imagery, reflecting society's fascination with exploration and the unknown. Cinema and television quickly integrated the moon landing into narratives, blending fact and fantasy. Films like Marooned, 1969, dramatized space rescue, while later productions such as 2001, A Space Odyssey, 1968, found renewed audiences, their futuristic visions validated by real events. Documentaries and newsreels became educational staples, providing footage of liftoff, lunar excursions, and Earthrise, preserving these images in collective memory. Literature embraced the lunar milestone through both fiction and non-fiction. Arthur C. Clarke's novels gained traction, while Carl Sagan's Cosmos incorporated Apollo imagery to promote scientific wonder. Children's books and comics, such as Tintin in the Moon, updated editions to include the astronauts' achievements, making space exploration accessible and engaging for younger audiences. Music responded with songs reflecting optimism and introspection. David Bowie's Space Oddity, released days before Apollo 11, climbed the charts, its melancholic tone resonating with a generation on the cusp of new frontiers. Classical composers, including Aaron Copland, dedicated works to space themes, performing pieces inspired by silence and vastness. NASA's own Mission Control selected iconic music cues like Beethoven's Ninth Symphony to underscore key mission phases, blending art and science. Public art installations commemorated the landing. Murals in urban centers depicted astronauts stepping onto the moon, often contextualized alongside civil rights imagery, symbolizing shared struggles and collective aspiration. Monuments and plaques were erected at launch sites, university campuses, and science centers, serving as perpetual reminders of human achievement. In fashion and design, lunar influences appeared in textiles and furniture. Metallic fabrics, geometric prints, and minimalist forms echoed spacecraft aesthetics. Architects paid homage in futuristic structures, using curved lines and reflective surfaces to evoke weightlessness and cosmic scale. The ethos of the international style merged with space-age motifs, shaping urban landscapes and consumer products. Media coverage extended into gaming and interactive exhibits. Planetariums and science museums hosted simulated moon landings, allowing visitors to operate replica controls. Arcade games and board games centered on space missions proliferated, offering immersive experiences that bridged education and entertainment. Perhaps most enduring is the visual iconography, the footprint in lunar dust, the planted flag, and the view of Earth rising over the horizon. These images became metaphors for human resilience, unity, and fragility. They permeated advertising campaigns promoting technology and travel, suggesting that, like the moon landing, the future held boundless possibility. Overall, Apollo 11's cultural resonance reshaped artistic expression, media narratives, and public imagination, forging a shared lexicon of exploration that continues to influence creative fields and popular culture. Part 5. Education and STEM, Inspiring Generations. The moon landing served as a catalyst for educational reform and investment in STEM disciplines. In the aftermath of Apollo 11, the US government and educational institutions launched initiatives aimed at nurturing the next generation of scientists, engineers, and mathematicians needed for continued space exploration and technological leadership. The National Science Foundation, NSF, and NASA expanded fellowship programs, offering scholarships to undergraduates and graduate students in physics, astronomy, and aerospace engineering. Universities established dedicated space science departments, installing state-of-the-art laboratories where students could analyze lunar sample analogues, design experimental payloads, and develop computational models of celestial mechanics. Enrollment in these programs surged in the early 1970s as television footage of the lunar surface captured the imaginations of young learners. At the primary and secondary levels, the Department of Education introduced space-themed curricula, emphasizing inquiry-based learning. Textbooks were revised to include chapters on spaceflight history, rocketry fundamentals, and the physics of orbits. Hands-on activities, such as model rocket launches, build-your-own telescope workshops, and classroom experiments simulating lunar gravity with pulleys, became commonplace. The Teacher in Space program, announced in 1984 but conceptualized in the Apollo era, underscored the importance of educators in disseminating scientific enthusiasm. Informal STEM education also flourished. Science museums, planetariums, and traveling exhibits showcased authentic Apollo artifacts, from spacesuits to lunar rock samples. Interactive displays allowed visitors to operate replica guidance consoles, participate in simulated launches, and view 3D reconstructions of the lunar module's interior. These experiential environments engaged families, fostering lifelong interest in scientific careers. Outreach programs reached underserved communities through partnerships with historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs, and Hispanic Serving Institutions, HSIs. NASA's Minority University Research and Education Project, MUREP, provided grants for curriculum development and summer research internships, aiming to diversify the STEM workforce. These efforts contributed to incremental increases in minority representation among space scientists and engineers over subsequent decades. Internationally, NASA collaborated with foreign space agencies and educational bodies to share curriculum materials and sponsor joint student research projects. The emphasis on global cooperation reflected the ideal of space as a domain for all mankind, as articulated in the Outer Space Treaty. Students from Europe, Japan, and emerging spacefaring nations participated in exchange programs, building transnational networks that underpin today's multinational missions to the International Space Station. Furthermore, popular media reinforced STEM inspiration. Television specials such as For All Mankind dramatized the Apollo missions, while comic strips and children's shows featured recurring astronaut characters who solved scientific puzzles. Space-themed science fairs and robotics competitions, precursors to modern FIRST robotics, challenged students to apply engineering principles to real-world problems, fostering teamwork and innovation. In policy terms, the emphasis on STEM education influenced federal funding priorities and workforce development strategies. Reports such as the National Commission on Excellence in Education's A Nation at Risk, 1983, cited space program achievements as benchmarks for academic rigor. State governments allocated resources for gifted science programs, and philanthropic foundations endowed scholarships for promising students in STEM fields. Over time, the sustained educational legacy of Apollo 11 became evident in the pipeline of talent that powered later missions, satellite communications, and computer technology revolutions. Engineers who cut their teeth in Apollo laboratories went on to develop GPS systems, medical imaging devices, and commercial air and space transport. The Apollo generation's commitment to education set a cultural precedent. Investing in human capital is essential for national and global progress. In conclusion, Apollo 11's influence on education and STEM was transformative, inspiring curriculum innovation, expanding research opportunities, and nurturing a diverse generation of scientists and engineers. Its legacy endures in the continued pursuit of knowledge, the quest for exploration, and the belief that education can propel humanity to new frontiers. Part 6. Apollo Program. Evolution, Missions, 12 through 17. Following the success of Apollo 11, NASA continued lunar exploration with missions Apollo 12 through Apollo 17 between November 1969 and December 1972. Each mission built on the achievements and lessons of its predecessors, expanding scientific inquiry, operational capabilities, and understanding of lunar geology. Apollo 12, November 1969, demonstrated precision landing by touching down within walking distance of the Surveyor 3 probe. Astronauts Charles Pete Conrad and Alan L. Bean retrieved parts of Surveyor's camera, offering valuable insights into long-duration exposure effects on equipment. The mission's success in pinpoint landings laid the groundwork for more ambitious traverses. Apollo 13, April 1970, faced a life-threatening oxygen tank explosion en route to the Moon, forcing the crew, Jim Lovell, Jack Swigert, and Fred Hayes, to abort their landing. Their safe return to Earth, orchestrated through rapid problem-solving and improvisation, became a testament to NASA's resilience and ingenuity under crisis. Procedures developed during the rescue influenced safety protocols for future missions. Apollo 14, February 1971, returned to lunar exploration with increased focus on scientific tools and mobility. Alan Shepard famously hit 2 golf balls on the lunar surface, but more importantly, Shepard and Edgar Mitchell deployed extensive geophysical instruments and collected diverse rock samples. They conducted detailed seismic studies and set up heat flow experiments that deepened knowledge of lunar interior structure. Apollo 15, July 1971, marked the introduction of the Lunar Roving Vehicle, LRV, dramatically increasing the range astronauts David Scott and James Irwin could cover. The rover enabled exploration of the Hadley Apennine region, revealing Highland Mare boundary geology and collecting the Genesis rock, the oldest known lunar sample. The mission's scientific yield underscored the value of mobility. Apollo 16, April 1972, explored the Descartes Highlands, a geologically complex highland region. John Young and Charlie Duke deployed advanced instruments, including a heat flow probe and a document camera for close-up imagery. Their findings challenged existing theories about highland formation and broadened the geological context of the lunar surface. Apollo 17, December 1972, represented the program's culmination, featuring the first scientist-astronaut, geologist Harrison Schmitt. Alongside mission commander Gene Cernan, Schmitt conducted extensive field geology, deploying the Apollo Lunar Surface Experiments Package, ALSEP, and collecting the blue soil samples rich in volcanic glass. Their work provided critical data on lunar volcanic activity. Across missions 12 to 17, NASA increased the sophistication of scientific objectives, improved technologies like the LRV, and refined operational techniques. The evolution, from brief visits to extended field geology, laid the foundation for future human and robotic exploration strategies on the Moon and Mars. Part 7. Commercial spin-offs, technology transfer, and industry. The Apollo program's technological innovations extended far beyond spaceflight, spawning commercial spin-offs that transformed industries. From consumer electronics to medical devices, technologies developed for lunar missions found broad applications. One notable example is memory foam. Originally created for aircraft seats to improve cushioning and safety, the viscoelastic polyurethane foam later found widespread use in mattresses, pillows, and protective padding for sports and medical equipment. Its pressure-relieving properties derive directly from research on impact absorption for astronaut habitats. Another spin-off was the smoke detector. Early space station habitats required reliable methods to detect cabin fires in microgravity. NASA's investment in photoelectric sensors led to highly sensitive, low-power smoke detectors now ubiquitous in homes and businesses worldwide. Water filtration systems developed for Apollo's life support recirculation inspired portable water purification technologies. Companies adapted NASA's granular, activated carbon and multifiltration cartridges for camping gear, emergency relief operations, and municipal water treatment, ensuring safe drinking water in remote or crisis conditions. Advances in prosthetics and biomedical devices also trace their roots to the Apollo era. Research on pressure garments and life support interfaces influenced the design of limb prostheses, artificial heart pumps, and ergonomic surgical instruments. Manufacturing techniques developed for high-precision spacecraft components improved the fabrication of medical devices. The computing architecture of the Apollo Guidance Computer, AGC, paved the way for embedded computing. Its real-time operating system, redundancy protocols, and compact design principles influenced avionics, industrial automation, and early personal computers. Companies like Hewlett-Packard and Intel leveraged these insights in developing microprocessors and industrial controllers. Thermal insulation materials such as aerogels and multi-layer insulation emerged from the need to protect spacecraft from extreme temperature fluctuations. Today, these materials are used in building construction, refrigeration systems, and apparel designed for extreme environments. In telecommunications, signal processing algorithms refined for Apollo's telemetry improved cellular phone networks and satellite communications. The robust error correction techniques and spread spectrum methods underpin modern digital communications, GPS navigation, and broadband internet. NASA's Technology Transfer Program, formalized in the 1970s, facilitated the licensing of hundreds of patents to private firms. By collaborating with businesses, NASA ensured that government-funded research benefited the broader economy, generating new products, jobs, and competitive advantages. Overall, Apollo's spin-off technologies exemplify how ambitious government research can catalyze diverse commercial innovations, boosting economic growth and improving quality of life across multiple sectors. Part 8. Geopolitical Symbolism, Soft Power and Diplomacy. Apollo 11's success was a potent symbol of American soft power. Beyond bricks-and-mortar militaries or economic aid, demonstrating technological prowess and visionary exploration influenced global perceptions. The mission's images and narratives conveyed ideals of ingenuity, courage, and peaceful ambition, qualities that shaped diplomatic engagements during and after the Cold War. In the United States, the moon landing reinforced national identity and pride. bolstering public support for scientific leadership. Abroad, American embassies used Apollo artifacts in traveling exhibits, fostering goodwill and showcasing US achievements. Visiting dignitaries often toured NASA facilities, blending science diplomacy with strategic dialogue. The Soviet Union, despite competing in the space race, recognized the moon landing's diplomatic implications. Subsequent détente in the early 1970s, including strategic arms limitation talks, SALT, and cultural exchange programs, occurred in a climate influenced by mutual recognition of space as a domain for cooperation, not just competition. Countries in the non-aligned movement leveraged the Apollo narrative to advocate for peaceful uses of space. India and Brazil proposed joint satellite projects, citing the collaborative spirit of space exploration. These initiatives laid groundwork for future multilateral endeavours, such as the International Space Station and global Earth observation networks. Soft power also extended to technological diplomacy. NASA trained engineers and scientists from friendly nations, often hosting international students at the Manned Spacecraft Center. These collaborations fostered networks of professionals who carried Apollo's legacy into their home countries, advancing global space capacity. Cultural diplomacy further leveraged Apollo imagery. Films and documentaries funded by cultural agencies featured lunar footage, promoting themes of unity and potential. UNESCO incorporated space exploration into educational programs, emphasizing its role in addressing global challenges like environmental stewardship and resource management. In sum, Apollo 11 exemplified how space exploration can serve as a diplomatic tool, weaving scientific achievement into the fabric of international relations and soft power projection. Part 9. NASA's organizational growth and challenges. The Apollo program's rapid expansion transformed NASA from a fledgling agency into a global leader in space exploration. In 1961, NASA's budget was modest. By the late 1960s, it commanded approximately 4% of the federal budget, employing hundreds of thousands across centers, partner industries, and academia. To manage Apollo's complexity, NASA established specialized centers: the Manned Spacecraft Center, now Johnson Space Center, for crew operations, Marshall Space Flight Center for vehicle development, Kennedy Space Center for launch operations, and the newly formed Office of Manned Spaceflight to coordinate efforts. This distributed structure enabled parallel progress but introduced communication and bureaucratic challenges. Scaling up required robust project management frameworks. NASA adopted systems engineering methodologies, integrating technical, schedule, and budget controls. The program office implemented multi-tiered reviews, including critical design reviews and flight readiness reviews, to ensure reliability. These processes became models for large-scale engineering projects beyond aerospace. However, growth also brought challenges. Cost overruns and schedule slippages prompted congressional scrutiny. The tragic Apollo 1 fire in 1967 highlighted organizational risks, leading to comprehensive safety reforms and cultural shifts toward open reporting. Subsequent investigations emphasized the need for independent oversight and reinforced the value of dissenting technical opinions. Post-Apollo, NASA faced an identity crisis. With the moon landing achieved, budget cuts loomed, and mission priorities shifted toward the space shuttle and unmanned exploration. Center directors grappled with resource reallocation, workforce reductions, and sustaining innovation. The transition underscored the difficulty of maintaining momentum after a flagship achievement. Despite these challenges, lessons from Apollo's organizational growth influenced later NASA endeavors. The Space Shuttle's development leveraged systems engineering principles, while the agency's experience informed the International Space Station's multinational coordination. Moreover, NASA's engagement with industry partners set precedents for public-private collaborations that continue in programs like Commercial Crew and Artemis. Overall, Apollo's organizational journey, from rapid expansion to strategic realignment, offers insights into managing large-scale scientific enterprises, balancing innovation with safety, and navigating post-success transitions. Part 10: Human Factors, Astronauts' Experiences, and Health Insights. Apollo missions provided unparalleled data on human performance in space. The physical and psychological demands of lunar missions, extended microgravity exposure, confined quarters, and high-stakes operations offered insights into astronaut health and behavior. Physiologically, crew members experienced cardiovascular deconditioning, bone density loss, and fluid redistribution. To mitigate these effects, NASA developed in-flight exercise regimens using bungee cords and resistance devices. Biomedical monitoring, electrocardiograms, blood tests, and vestibular assessments tracked health, leading to countermeasures still used on the International Space Station. Radiation exposure was another concern. Lunar missions exposed astronauts to cosmic rays and solar particle events. Dosimeters worn by crew allowed estimation of cumulative doses, informing shielding requirements for spacecraft and the design of pharmacological radioprotectants for future deep space missions. Psychologically, lunar missions involved intense stress and isolation. Crew selection emphasized adaptability, teamwork, and problem-solving under pressure. Behavioral health protocols, regular communication with ground, scheduled leisure activities, and private journals supported mental well-being. Post-mission debriefings revealed minimal long-term psychological issues, showcasing the effectiveness of support systems. Observational studies noted circadian rhythm disruptions due to rapid orbital cycles and constant artificial lighting. Sleep quality data informed lighting design and scheduling on subsequent missions, emphasizing synchronized light-dark cycles for crew alertness and performance. Gastrointestinal function and nutritional intake were monitored closely. Freeze-dried food stability, palatability, and caloric sufficiency were validated, shaping menu planning for long-duration flights. Lessons learned guided dietary provisions for Skylab, Mir, and ISS expeditions. Furthermore, the adaptation to lowered gravity during lunar EVAs provided data on motor control, spatial orientation, and tactile feedback. Ergonomic design of spacesuits and tools evolved from these insights, improving dexterity and reducing fatigue. In sum, Apollo's human factors research laid foundational knowledge for sustaining astronauts on extended missions, guiding spacecraft cabin design, health countermeasures, and psychological support for future lunar and Martian explorers. Part 11: Lunar Science, Key Discoveries, and Ongoing Research. Apollo 11 and subsequent missions ignited a new era of lunar science. Direct sampling of the Moon's surface allowed scientists to test hypotheses about its origin, structure, and evolution. Analysis of Apollo 11's 21.6 kilograms of rock and soil, alongside data from later missions, led to groundbreaking discoveries. One key finding was the Moon's formation mechanism. Isotopic composition of lunar samples closely matched that of Earth's mantle, supporting the giant impact hypothesis. According to this model, a Mars-sized body collided with the proto-Earth around 4.5 billion years ago, ejecting material that coalesced into the Moon. Radiometric dating of basalts and breccias from Apollo missions refined the timeline of lunar crust formation. Apollo samples also revealed the nature of lunar volcanism. Mare basalts, dark in color, indicated basaltic lava flows filling ancient impact basins. Geochemical analysis identified variations in titanium and iron content, shedding light on mantle heterogeneity and melting processes. These insights informed models of thermal evolution of planetary bodies. The lunar regolith, a layer of fragmented rock and dust, captured billions of years of meteoroid bombardment, solar wind implantation, and cosmic ray exposure. Mare soil grains trapped solar wind particles, enabling measurement of ancient solar activity. Studies of microcraters and grain spherules calibrated meteoroid flux over geological timescales. Passive seismic experiments deployed by Apollo astronauts detected moonquakes, both deep moonquakes associated with tidal stresses and shallow quakes likely triggered by thermal contraction. These data provided constraints on the Moon's internal structure, including the existence of a solid inner core and partially molten outer regions, analogous to Earth's layered interior. Laser-ranging retroreflectors installed during Apollo 11 continue to yield precise measurements of the Earth-Moon distance. These long-term datasets test aspects of general relativity, tidal evolution, and rotational dynamics. The Moon is receding from Earth at approximately 3.8 centimeters per year, evidence of tidal dissipation in Earth's oceans. Recent missions, such as NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and China's Chang'e probes, build on Apollo's legacy by mapping surface features, identifying water ice in permanently shadowed craters, and planning future landing sites. Proposed Artemis missions aim to return humans to the lunar South Pole, focusing on in situ resource utilization, ISRU, for water extraction and habitat construction. Ongoing research leverages Apollo's sample archive. Small aliquots of lunar material are loaned to laboratories worldwide, integrating modern analytical techniques, mass spectrometry, synchrotron radiation, and nanoscale imaging to uncover new geochemical signatures and mineralogy. These efforts refine our understanding of volatile element distribution, mantle source regions, and space weathering processes. In summary, Apollo 11 inaugurated a legacy of lunar science, with discoveries on formation, volcanism, seismic activity, and regolith processes. Continued research, both robotic and human, promises to deepen knowledge of the Moon as a record of solar system history and as a proving ground for future exploration. Part 12. Environmental Perspective, Earthrise and Global Awareness. While Apollo's scientific and technological achievements are well known, one of its most profound legacies is an environmental consciousness ignited by the iconic Earthrise photograph. Captured during Apollo 8's 1968 lunar orbit, but popularized alongside Apollo 11, Earthrise revealed Earth as a fragile, interconnected oasis suspended in the void. This perspective shift catalyzed the modern environmental movement. Leaders and activists used Earthrise imagery to underscore the planet's finite resources and the need for stewardship. Rachel Carson's seminal Silent Spring, 1962, found renewed urgency, and the first Earth Day in April 1970 saw millions rallying for conservation, influenced by lunar-era awareness. Policy responses included the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, in 1970, and the passage of landmark legislation, the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, and Endangered Species Act. Internationally, the 1972 United Nations Conference on the Human Environment in Stockholm drew inspiration from the Apollo era, setting frameworks for global cooperation on environmental issues. Technological spin-offs in Earth observation emerged from Apollo's camera and sensor technologies. Radiometric calibration techniques developed for lunar photography influenced satellite remote sensing, enabling monitoring of deforestation, urbanization, and climate phenomena. Instruments on Landsat, Nimbus, and successive Earth-observing satellites built upon Apollo's legacy to track environmental change. Educational programs incorporated Earth science with space imagery. Space-based photographs featured in geography, and ecology curricula, fostering holistic understanding of Earth systems. The concept of the blue marble became a teaching tool for demonstrating planetary interconnectedness, resilience, and vulnerability. Artists and writers also integrated Earthrise themes into environmental literature and visual arts. Works like James Lovelock's Gaia Hypothesis, 1979, conceptualized Earth as a self-regulating system, while photographers displayed montages contrasting pristine Earth with industrial pollution, galvanizing public sentiment for ecological preservation. Continued observatories of Earth from the International Space Station and geostationary satellites owe their heritage to Apollo-era awareness. Real-time data on carbon emissions, ocean salinity, and atmospheric composition inform climate models and policy decisions today. In essence, the environmental perspective catalyzed by Earthrise and Apollo missions redefined humanity's relationship with its home planet, fostering a global consciousness of ecological responsibility and laying the groundwork for contemporary environmental science and policy. Part 13. Private Sector Emergence. From Apollo to Artemis and beyond. Apollo's demonstration of public sector capability in space exploration inspired private enterprises to enter the field. Initial forays in satellite communications, such as ComSat in the 1960s, pioneered commercial space applications. Though human spaceflight remained government-led for decades, the private sector gradually gained momentum. In the 1980s, satellite manufacturing and launch services expanded with companies like Hughes and Boeing. The commercialization of remote sensing and telecommunications satellites set precedents for revenue-driven space operations. However, it was the 21st century that saw a dramatic private sector resurgence. Entrepreneurs like Elon Musk, SpaceX, founded 2002, and Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin, founded 2000, cited Apollo's pioneering spirit as motivation. They aimed to reduce launch costs through reusable rockets, SpaceX's Falcon 9 and Blue Origin's New Shepard, shifting economic models. Contracts with NASA for commercial resupply services to the ISS proved the viability of public-private partnerships. The Commercial Crew Program, 2014 onward, exemplifies this shift. SpaceX's Crew Dragon and Boeing's Starliner transported astronauts, marking the first private spacecraft to carry humans to orbit. These achievements trace philosophical roots to Apollo's demonstration of human exploration's value. Lunar-focused private initiatives, such as Astrobotic and Intuitive Machines, plan robotic landers under NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services (CLPS) program. They aim to deliver scientific instruments to the Moon's surface, fostering a new ecosystem of lunar commerce and research. The Artemis program integrates private partners more deeply than Apollo, leveraging commercial lunar landers, habitat modules, and even surface power systems. NASA's goal of a sustainable lunar economy by the late 2020s depends on private sector innovation and investment. Small satellite operators, CubeSats, reflect another private sector evolution. University and startup teams deploy scientific experiments and technology demonstrations, democratizing access to space. The open-source ethos and miniaturization technologies have roots in efficiencies learned during Apollo. Looking ahead, space tourism companies like Virgin Galactic and SpaceX's planned private lunar flybys carry the Apollo legacy into commercial human spaceflight. While safety, regulatory, and market challenges remain, the private sector's growing role underscores the enduring influence of Apollo's pioneering achievements on space enterprise. Part 14. Public Policy, Funding, Public Opinion, and Future Plans. Apollo 11's success hinged on robust public funding and support. In the 1960s, NASA's budget peaked at over 4% of federal spending. However, the post-Apollo era saw budgetary contractions as political priorities shifted. Lessons from this transition inform contemporary public policy debates about space investments. Throughout the 1970s, NASA faced cuts that cancelled planned missions and scaled back lunar ambitions. Congressional rhetoric questioned the return on investment. Should billions fund lunar outposts or address social programs? This debate persists in modern contexts, weighing scientific exploration against terrestrial needs. Public opinion plays a pivotal role. Polls during Apollo reflected over 70% support for space funding, yet this waned when missions became routine. Administrations leveraged flag-planting milestones to galvanize support, such as the shuttle's first flight in 1981. But sustaining enthusiasm proved challenging. The cyclical nature of space policy underscores the need for clear, compelling goals and stakeholder engagement. Contemporary policy frameworks, like the National Space Policy of 2010 and subsequent updates, emphasize space as an economic domain, national security asset, and scientific frontier. They incorporate commercial partnerships, international cooperation, and Earth observation priorities. Artemis directives, signed in 2019, articulate goals for sustainable lunar presence and Mars exploration, learning from Apollo's focus on singular achievements. Funding models now incorporate fixed-price contracts, milestone-based payments, and public-private partnerships. This contrasts with Apollo's cost-plus contracting, which guaranteed reimbursement for all expenses plus profit. Modern approaches aim to incentivize efficiency and innovation, but require rigorous oversight to balance risk and reward. Public outreach and STEM education remain integral to policy success. NASA's social media presence, educational grants, and citizen science initiatives engage broader audiences, maintaining public interest and political will. Drawing on Apollo's inspirational legacy, agencies craft narratives around planetary defense, climate monitoring, and economic opportunities in space. Looking forward, policy discussions consider issues like space traffic management, orbital debris mitigation, and space resource utilization. The lessons of Apollo, coordinated funding, visionary leadership, and international law inform these emerging debates, guiding frameworks for sustainable space governance in the 21st century. Part 15. Legacy Reflections. How Apollo 11 shaped the 21st century. Apollo 11's footsteps echo into the present, shaping technology, culture, and aspirations. The mission's legacy is multifaceted, a demonstration of what coordinated ambition can achieve, a wellspring for scientific and technological innovation, and a touchstone for global unity. Technologically, Apollo catalyzed decades of advancement. From integrated circuits to life support systems, its influence permeates modern devices, from smartphones to medical scanners. Project management approaches honed during Apollo inform large-scale endeavors in diverse fields, from infrastructure to software development. Culturally, the moon landing remains a symbol of possibility. It endures in art, literature, and collective memory as a testament to human creativity and cooperation. Generations born under the shadow of lunar modules carry its spirit into careers in science, arts, and public service, inspired by the notion that no boundary is insurmountable. Institutionally, Apollo's success propelled NASA into new ventures, space shuttle, planetary probes, and international collaborations. The model of live mission control and public engagement continues with the International Space Station, Mars rover missions, and telescopes exploring the cosmos. Internationally, Apollo 11's cooperative offshoots, Apollo-Soyuz ISS Artemis Accords, reflect its legacy as a platform for diplomacy. Space has become a realm where geopolitical rivals collaborate on scientific objectives, building trust through shared achievements. Educationally, Apollo's inspiration still resonates. Coding boot camps, robotics clubs, and planetary science programs trace direct lines to lunar era enthusiasm. Youth engagement in space science remains a priority, leveraging multimedia tools that stand on the shoulders of Apollo's broadcast legacy. Looking ahead as humanity contemplates returning to the moon, traveling to Mars, and venturing beyond the heliosphere, Apollo 11's lessons remain vital. The blend of bold vision, meticulous planning, and collaborative spirit it exemplified offers a blueprint for addressing humanity's greatest challenges, both on Earth and among the stars. In essence, Apollo 11's legacy is not confined to a single moment on July 20th, 1969. It is a living narrative that continues to inspire innovation, collaboration, and exploration in the 21st century.